Well, this is Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com, www.commonlawyer.com, coming at you from the remote hinterlands of the Wabash River Valley, where the hogs, the frogs, and the dogs keep up a racket all night long. We started out about the Pilgrims. They were a sect of Puritans. They did not dress in those black hats. You see those pictures. Oh, there were some that did, but frankly, they loved colors. You know, the Puritans and the Pilgrims have gotten negative press through the years because the evil empire hates Christianity. There's a couple of things these Puritans, these Pilgrims liked more than anything else. Number one was bright colored clothing. Yeah. Number two was sex. They loved sex. I remember when I was in school, I had a professor that had us read the writings of the Puritans, some of them. And I remember there was this one Puritan, he was a clergyman, and he took the Bible and he wrote of the joys of sex with his wife, of course, and how important it is, how important sex is to life, and how a virile culture, a manly culture will be sexual with their wives. They will make babies with their wives. And he goes into great detail talking about the passions of sex. They were not, in that sense, puritanical. See, they get a bad rap. It's all off. They were puritanical in that they were the most biblical race of men that ever lived. Now, that's the opinion of historians. You can read about them yourselves and see if that's true. Did they make mistakes? They made a lot of mistakes. And then they went to seed. They began to think that they were God's answer to everything. And that's why they disappeared. They did disappear. Their descendants live in New England now, and New England became a center for existentialism. That's paganism. By the time of the American Civil War, the last of the great Puritans was Jonathan Edwards. Jonathan Edwards, called the greatest mind that America ever produced. Oh, there's so much in American history. And on the 4th of July and on other holidays like that, we talk about it. Right now, we're talking about Thanksgiving. So here's what happened. As I'd said, and that word that begins with an M, that may have been the tribal name. Doesn't make much difference for my purposes here. We know that what happened, and names we may forget. I got some of them right. He showed them how to squanto. He showed them how to plant corn. Remember, he was the one that went to England for 9 years, could speak good, perfect English. He showed them how to plant corn in hills, how to fertilize it. And we've been planting corn ever since, haven't we? Corn is king in my part of the world, in the Wabash Valley, has been for a long time, and increasingly so. We used to split it between wheat, barley, soybeans, and corn. But now when I drive up and down the roads at home, all I see is corn, and we don't make it to put it in a bottle like the people in the mountains. You know, they make corn mash and whiskey. Oh, there's some that do, I shouldn't. But mostly it's for the corn syrup and hog feed and cattle feed and a whole lot of other products that people don't know anything about. It's king. Why? Because of Squanto. Isn't that amazing? One Indian wearing a breechcloth with tattoos all over his hide. Not to say you should have tattoos, that's pagan, but I'm making the point. The Bible says don't do that. But God will use anybody he wants to use. And by the way, he uses everybody for his glory and his purposes, whether you know it or not, or whether you want it or not. That's what's going to happen. You may as well relax and go along with it happily and make that the purpose of your life, to glorify God and enjoy him forever. Well, they had a good crop that year. He showed them how to plant pumpkins. I'm still eating I ate pumpkin pie yesterday. 2 days ago at least. Ate pecan pie too. That's something that's pretty prevalent in America. Of course, succotash. I didn't eat succotash on Thanksgiving this year, but we always used to have succotash. Did eat pecan pie. Oh, we had sweet tater pie. Ooh, sweet tater pie. And my daughter-in-law made it in a great big iron skillet, this yay big around. I mean, huge. And she had all those sweet taters smashed up in there and whatever else she put on them. And then She put little tiny marshmallows on top. She said, well, this is not good for you. I know this isn't health food, because she cooked pretty healthy. And I said, well, listen, I have a friend at home that says that her theory is, she's 97. Her theory is a fellow ought to eat one thing bad for him every day. I said, why is that, Dorothy? Her name, Dorothy McLaren. I said, why is that? She said, well, that helps build up your immune system. I said, you could carry that too far, you know. She said, yeah, you could. I don't. I wouldn't eat some stuff she fixed. But I'll tell you what, everything she fixed tasted good. I don't care if it's good for you or not. She knew how to cook. She could put on a feed, and I'd put on the feed bag. It was awfully, awfully nice. Well, and she always cooked on a wooden range, a wooden cook stove where you take the lid off the top, put the wood in, you know, and she had a water reservoir on the side, always hot. And she cooked and baked all of her bread on that. She taught all 5 of my daughters how to bake. And they can bake up a storm now. And I didn't ask her to do it. I'm glad she did, because they were hanging around around Dorothy's. And her husband, old Burl McLaren, he couldn't resist making a big garden and had fruit trees. And he'd produce honeydew or honey, what was they call them? Different kind of squash, which are related to pumpkins, by the way. The squash is a highly underrated food. Now, the Indians all ate different kinds of squash, all kinds of squash. And it's good for the gizzard, and we should eat more of it. I try to eat it. I like it fried. I like to take squash and different things, like cucumbers are related to squash, and different kind of squash, and slice them up, roll them in salted flour, and fry them. Again, I could inhale them. Well, they had these pilgrims. This Indian showed them how to raise pumpkins, how to make corn produce good, a whole bunch of other stuff. So they had a big feast that year. That'd be 1621, wouldn't it? Is that right? I think that's when it happened. They invited all the red man tribes over. Of course, they had a treaty with them, a peace, and lasted 25 years. And they had a festivity of a day. You see, the pilgrims were not sticks in the mud. They're Christian folk. They like to wear colored clothes. They like sex. So what did they have? Big families. They multiplied rapidly. And they had shooting contests with the Indians. And then they had running contests. They had wrestling contests. They did all the things that men like to do. They competed. They shared food together, lots of food, because the pilgrims were thankful that God had sent these red men over to show them how to provide for themselves and not starve to death. And if it wasn't for them, don't forget, if it wasn't for those red men, this country would not have got the jump start it got. And it did get a jump start there. And what those pilgrims did, then coupled with the Puritans, set the tone for America. I listened to an English lady just the other day, just before the Trump election. She came on and she said, I love you, Americans. I love Donald Trump. Well, I don't know whether Trump had her on his campaign, didn't say that, but she said, I'm a Brit. And she said, you Americans have thrown our British ASS's out of your country twice. And I know it because every time I come to America, they remind me, we threw your ASS's out of here twice. Did that happen? Yeah, by the providence of God it happened. It wasn't because we were better than them. But it did happen. But she said this, you Americans fascinate me. She said, you get on elevators and you just start talking to each other. You've never met before. That is appalling to us British people. We'd never do that. And she said, you Americans have 4, 6, 8 children, and you never claim that you've ever had sex. Don't even talk about it. And the reason you don't do it, apparently, is because you go to church on Sunday. And you have the sensibility, you shouldn't talk about sex, but yet you're very sexual. Did you know that the more pornography there is in a society, this is studies done like this, I read them. The more pornography in a society, the less children there will be, the less sexual, really sexual men and women become. Now, there are many theories why that's true, but it's true. God will not bless you, a country with children, if they're into the wrong things. The Puritans understood that, and they saw what was going on in their home country, and that's what was going on in the home country. That's why the Great Migration occurred. As I've said before, they weren't wanting to get out of England just to get out of England. They wanted to come to a place where they could regroup, and they were fighting a war with the crown, and they were going to rule England from America. That's what they wanted. They prayed for it. What happened? Well, Christian folk, and a lot of folk, are looking to us now and saying, we want to be like you. And since Trump has got elected again, that encouraged the whole world. Is it because DJ Trump's a moral man? No. Is it because he's not a sinner? No. Is he a saint? I don't know. I don't know. Is he Christian? Well, it could be. I know he was confirmed through the Presbyterian Church, and I know which confession he learned, because I learned it too, the Westminster Confession. I know he's got Christian culture bolted into his brain. I know that. But has it been put down in mental sod, and is it growing? I don't know. I do know the Lord do work in mysterious ways. And I live in this old world, and DJ Trump promoting the right ideas. God bless America. It all comes by the providence of God. I'm going to say one more thing, and then we're going to hear a song if you've got one, Miss Francine. Christianity, listen to me, please. Christianity and a Christian nation is not at its foundation is not a moral order. It is not a moral order. Well, what is it then? Well, it's not morality. That's not the foundation of what's going on here. Number one, morality doesn't mean nothing. All morality, that's a Latin word. It means custom. What are the mores of society? Well, they're pretty rotten. That's what they are. I wouldn't want to have much to do with any of them. It's a culture of death. Forget the word moral. Forget the idea. Dumbest title they could have ever chosen was moral majority. That's not who we are as Christian folks. What are we? Watch me. We're providential. Christianity and a Christian nation is a providential order. Providential. That means God provides everything and makes it happen. And we try to discern what he's doing and don't want to resist him, and we go along with it. That's Christianity. That's how we conquered this continent. Should we beat our chest and say our ancestor conquered this continent? No. God conquered this continent by his impelling force of his spirit through men. Most of them didn't have a clue what they were doing. Oh, God help us. Everything is of him, through him, and back to him. Otherwise, the Bible says we could brag. We can't brag on that. We can brag in him, but we can't brag on ourselves. But the rest of the world will look at us as the danger. But we aren't. God's the danger to the evil man, not me. God is the danger to the evil man. I fear him. Does the evil man fear him? No, he doesn't. He fears me. Well, one more point. This Christian culture has picked up steam till by the time there were two men in England that went to school together. I'm going to continue this saga of what happened next after the Puritans began to wane. Well, this is Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com, www.commonlawyer.com, coming at you from the remote hinterlands of the Wabash River Valley, where the hogs, the frogs, and the dogs keep up a racket all night long.